Hey guys, how's it going? It's me, Myogi, and welcome back to more information about our OtaNeime community project. If this is your first time watching, I highly suggest to check back on our previous video, which you can click here on the upper left portion of the screen, which tackles more on what OtaNeime is and what round 1 was about, which is pretty much the scope and sequence on story writing. But I'm pretty sure most of you guys are here to know more about round 2, which focuses on character design. Before we get started, I'd just like to say thank you very much to all participants who joined in on round 1 and submitted their stories. By the time this video was finished, we would have already chosen the story that we're going to work with. So do follow us on our social media pages to find out which story it is so that you would have a good idea on what character you're going to make. And also, if you actually wanted to check it out as well, if ever we decide to share it here too, be sure to subscribe to us and click the bell icon so that you will be notified if we do share it on our community tab. Now, when it comes to round 2, for those who are familiar with the art of character designing, I'll pretty much give out now what it is that you would be needing. In reference to the winner of round 1, we will be providing the character information of the winning story, and that is your main tool that you're going to use. And after that one, everything else pretty much depends on your artistic prowess. For you guys with regards to submitting, what you would be submitting is a character sheet, which pretty much covers the front and back of the character design you made, and a couple of expressions, roughly around 2 or 3, just enough to give us an idea that it will be matching the character's personality. And that's basically it. Just like to let you guys know though, you may create, if the story that we chose does contain more than 2 characters, our main basis for judging would still be only for the 2 main characters. Now, if you're here for the free lesson or this is your first time creating a character based on somebody else's story, well, look no further, we will be providing a crash course lesson with regards to character design. So if you're here for the tutorial, be sure to take notes. If you're here because you're going to be joining in as well for round 2, be sure to take notes. And both of you, please don't forget to slap that like button and subscribe to OtaCute TV to get more free lessons such as this as OtaNeime goes on. Now we would be needing 2 main things. Yep, it's the same beret again. I don't know, it's a stereotype, but I'll buy it. And of course, if you are doing this digitally, a tablet pen, a pen tablet would be nice. If you're doing it over the phone, it's fine as well. Now the main point, character designing. Why is it important? Pretty much in a story, an animated story, 2 major things are what drives people to keep watching it either over and over again, or what would stick to their minds. One would be the story, the other one would be the characters themselves. So they can easily relate now, oh, that character, I've seen that character from this story, I remember it like at the back of my head, that sort of thing. Like you can have a good character but a really stupid story, it will be remembered as a stupid story. You can at the same time have a good story but a really crummy character. So whether it's good or bad, both the story and the character is what would make or break how memorable it would be. In industry standard, 2 kinds of drawings for the character are being used. We have the character sheet and the character turnaround. The character sheet, as much as if you've seen there earlier on what is scrolling on the screen, not that one. Those are game sprites. That's different. I will do the differentiation later. The character sheet is pretty much showing the character on its front and back or some certain angles, followed by a sample set of expressions. Normally the character sheet is the promotional material that they share on to, yeah, like this one here with Hinata from Gundam Build Fighters and Hirota from Build Divers Rise. These are normally shown publicly to viewers who are anticipating the show or looking forward to it. And at a single glance, it can pretty much show you what kind of characters they really are. Are they timid? Are they confident? Are they haughty? Are they grumpy? It can really show based on how the character looks. If you're familiar with the phrase, don't judge a book by its cover, you're pretty much breaking that statement because that is what really you are seeing on at first glance. The character turnaround, however, it is pretty much a 360-degree view of the character from front, back, side, the other side, and the quarters. This is the main tool that most animators use so that they would know what the character looks like on all angles at any specific camera position, so that when they draw it, it will be consistent throughout. Now here's the thing when it comes to non-production type of designing. A character that you design for yourself and a character that you design for other people. Or in another way, a character instructed by someone else for you to make. If it's a character that you have done for yourself, by yourself, you pretty much know the character at the back of their head, so it's easy for you to grasp what kind of personality you want to give it. So you draw it at a certain way. When it comes to designing for other people, that is where it's somewhat different, because you do not have the mental image of the final output of how they would look like. It's always the other person. And that's the reason why they are relying to you to make that material from text into visual reality. So your main goal is to pretty much translate, quote unquote, what you are seeing from the character description and from the story script, so that you would have a somewhat good idea on how it would appear once it's animated. Designing as well for 2D animation is quite different from designing as, say, an illustration or a commission illustration. When designing for something that is not an animation, such as these ones, like game sprites, for example, or digital paintings, you're pretty much going to give it a lot of detail, that's a given. But for this one, for example, with Doraemon, you are going to tone down some of the quality because you do not want to torture your animators. In one way or another, that is how we look at it, especially if the character is heavily or too detailed for its own good. You can see some simplicity, like they simplified it to use chunk of shapes instead of showing all those creases and whatnot. If you're making game sprites like for a visual novel, those extra details are pretty much mandatory, because they're just still images, they don't actually move as much. Because 3D, even more so, because you are letting the computer animate it for you, or you have a different way of showing it. Instead of doing it frame by frame, a computer does it for you. So if you want to keep it consistent with all that details, do so. But when it comes to an animation, however, you want to get that out fast, quickly. That's what the animators want and need. So simplicity is key when making a character for an animation. Though of course, some would be breaking that rule and would really go for super realism even on a 2D animation. One of the best examples, as you've seen earlier during the slides, is Violet Evergarden by KyoAni, pretty much one of the best animated works. So simplicity is pretty much the backbone of how you're creating the character. And when you're okay with that rule, you can pretty much break the rule itself depending on what either the story wants or what the client wants. Some elements in character designing are pretty much beyond the scope of what we will be tackling about, because that's what makes it unique, such as art style. Art style is pretty much the main thing that we have no say on, because people have different art styles, people have different approaches. But there will be some golden rules that you do need to follow when you are creating a character sheet or a character for a story but written by someone else. Let's take a look at the main point, which I'd like to call the head height system. With the head height system, you pretty much use the design of your character's head as the basis to see if your character is vertically proportional. What I meant by vertically proportional is, for example, some characters, unless it is stipulated, have extremely short legs but have a super realistic face. Those kinds of things. When it comes to a 2D anime or 2D animation, there is a standard that most character designers follow when it comes to the head height system. If you're doing someone like, say, a preschooler, it should be roughly around 3 heads. If it's a kid, like around 10 years of age, you would give it around 5 heads worth of height. If it's a teen, you would give it 7.5 or so. And if it's an adult, you can go to as much as 8 heads. Some productions tend to vary or differ otherwise, such as the ones behind the animated series of Cardcaptor Sakura, Triple X Holic, Tsubasa Chronicles. they have their different way on it, and it is mostly like their already established style, so we don't really have much that to say. Like daddy long legs kind of arms and legs, or some of the designs that kind of resemble like Slenderman. And just like to give an extra note here that for chibis, it is 2 to 2.5 heads high. Moving forward to the next element, which is another golden rule here, is the use of shapes or shape language. Best examples are normally seen on Western animations, mostly Pixar, Disney, but sometimes it can also be said for the Eastern anime style. But it is constricted to certain parts of the body instead of the entire body itself. For example, for Mr. Incredible, you can pretty much define the shape or the silhouette that you are seeing. But when it comes to an anime character here, such as Olga from Fate Go, some are pretty much consistent to how it would look like in real life, with a few tweaks and touches on certain elements, such as facial features, hair, torso, or the head shape. Another prominent example would be some characters from Boku no Hero Academia, like put Deku and All Might together, side by side, and you would greatly see the difference. Using references is another golden rule when it comes to character designing. So pretty much, let's face it, not everything is fully original. Some would get bits and pieces from other things. One of the best examples is what you can see on the screen is Danganronpa. There were some testimonies with regards to how some characters are designed. Like some are heavily influenced by other series, by other references. So it's actually okay to use references when you're making a character. Just don't make it a 1:1 ratio direct copy. Outside how your character looks body-wise, another way to translate what is written on a character description of a certain character into a design is more often than not their apparel. The dress that they wear, the kind of things that they have around on their body would actually say a lot when it comes to, say, I don't know, personal background, upbringing, nationality, those sorts of things. Again, I'm going back to Danganronpa here because it is one of the best examples that pretty much shouts out what kind of person they actually are. For example, Fuyuhiko is known in the story as the ultimate Yakuza. So the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Yakuza. So the apparel is one thing. So you normally see him in a slim coat and tie with some leather shoes, whatnot, crew cut hair, those sorts of things. Or say for example in Danganronpa V3, Kaito Momota, the coat that he has, it has a motif of the astronomical star system underneath his coat, which reflects his personality as the ultimate astronaut, or how he is called as the luminary of the stars. Now dialing back a bit, we discussed shapes earlier, a rough description of it. For shapes, as I said earlier, when it comes to anime, it is usually restricted at certain parts instead of the entire body of the character itself. And facial design is what I would be dubbing this next rule. When it comes to creating a character for a 2D anime, the most prominent parts that give out or speak of the person's personality is usually the eye shape and how the lips look. Though it is well practiced in Western animation, as you can see there, you can see how the expression and pretty much gives you a backstory of the character. In anime, that is mostly the direct give and take on what tells you about the kind of person that character is. The last bit of detail that I would be discussing next is using color. I'm pretty sure this is where some artists would be struggling, but there's actually an easy way around it. If you are familiar with the color wheel, that is your main tool on defining the color mixture. And sometimes colors also do tend to speak of the mood that the character brings into the story. You can't just simply, however, use every sort of color that you see in the color wheel and throw it in on the character. You're gonna make them look like a clown, unless that is what you're actually after. So some extra notes to point out when using color. You can go for either one hue, and next to that one, you can pick up to 3 to 4 main colors. If you're going to diversify a bit further, stick it to those 3 to 4 main colors and then just mess around with the hues. And this kind of special note is mostly applied on everything but the skin. Though I will say there are some exemptions to this rule. Certain character designs, depending on the art direction, would be relying on the color hues that you selected to identify the color skin of the character. Now next I will be showing is a testimony from someone who's actually in the industry itself. Although he is vexed on the Western style of animation, he actually told me that it can also be applied as well for Eastern style or anime style works. So I got a testimony here from Mikey Singen, who is part of Rocket Animation Studios, and he has some words of wisdom to share with us with regards to character designing. And while this is happening, we would be applying on screen, we would be applying what he said when making a certain character design, provided with information provided by another source.
Okay, as I actually go along with the demonstration that you're seeing on screen, I'm going to be reading out Mikey Singun's testimony, and he begins with, when designing a character, it always begins with the story that you want to tell. People say not to judge a book by its cover, but here is what you should be actually focusing on. By just one look at the character, you could guess how this character acts and feels, and at other times, you may use the looks to ironically act as a polar opposite to how the character acts and feels. You're visually storytelling before you begin the story. Always know your character's history, personality, and ambition. Your character's history is basically just basic background, such as where they were born, what is their race, what culture is around them, what happened in their life. These are outside forces that helps build the character's base points. With these base points, you can make use of to show their skin color, facial features, and sometimes what they wear. Your character's personality may even come from their history and environment it is hard to portray in design. I would show their personality in how they pose and what they wear. Such as a happy personality character would be default smiling and wearing bright colors, as to a character who frowns and wears darker saturated colors to show sadness. Your character's ambition or what they want to achieve can help in their design as well. Your character wants to be an adventurer, then portray them wearing clothes an adventurer would wear, not just jeans and t-shirt every time. I am highly inspired by works of Pixar on how they design their characters, and they begin with a simple description such as, "He is a strong man." Visually, to portray this, we would look at shapes that infer to being strong, such as rectangles or squares. This develops to the posture of the character, standing straight and proud as compared to slouching and being lazy. Using that, my characters will always begin with a base shape, and I would build around it. Circles to show that this character is cute, squares to show that this character is strong or bold. Triangles may show this character may be sinister. Best examples of these are Hello Kitty, Mr. Incredible, and Jafar. To help designing a character based on an already made story, it is best to list down each description of the character, and with each point, think how to visually show it. An example of what I mean, as shown here by Myogi on screen, you list down some of the description points. The character is a young, cute Filipino girl. The character lives in the slums. The character is shy. With each point, it always think, how can I visually show this? Young and cute? I would draw a circle as my base with huge eyes with the proportion of a little girl. This indicates cute in many genres. Filipino, I would use a brown color for her skin and make her wear a Filipiniana, but lives in the slums, so I would then remove the Filipiniana and find suitable clothes from the area, such as a plain shirt and shorts with a bit of dirt. Shy but curious, so she would pose looking away with her head down mainly. At this point, I would research more on what pose shows shyness or any other emotion so that I can avoid it.
Before we end this video, I'd just like to reiterate one more time for those who will be participating in round 2 of the OtaNeime community contest of what it needs to be submitted. So, as per usual, we will have a Google form where you would need to register all your personal information, which we would be requiring from you. And we will have there an attachment tab where you can send in your submissions. If the story that we've selected contains more than 2 characters, be it main and sub, do take note that our basis for judging will only be referencing on the main characters. You're willing to submit the sub-characters as well if you're going to be designing them as well. But again, grading would be based on just the mains. Also, when it comes to deliverables, as you can see here on my laptop screen, this is what we would be looking for. It is a sample character sheet on my own personal project. This is me and Kazunami, so you would have her front, her back, and for this case, we will be asking around 3 or up to 4 maximum character expressions. Again, remember, the expressions would be dictating or reflecting the personality of the character, so keep that in mind. And when it comes to the standing poses, it should also reflect their personality, if ever you can do it as best as you could. And that is it with regards to the crash course on character designing. I know it is not as thorough as the other one, but this is the kind of guide that is better off said with visual examples than everything talkish. So I hope you've learned something today, and for those who are going to participate for round 2, we wish you the best of luck. Again, please follow our social media pages and do check out our community tab to be informed of the winning story so that you would have a good idea on what character you would be designing for round 2. And as always guys, thank you so much for joining us. This is OtaCute TV, and we will see you on the next video where we would be tackling details about round 3 and voice acting.